Intimacy. It's so much more than a word that old-fashioned people use because they're scared to say sex. Mended lights. It's scary. It's a scary word. If you say it 3 times, it might happen.
Sex or intimacy?
Sex. Sex. Sex.
Nothing happened.
Okay, so I would call this meaningful connection, and you can do this through conversation or touch or lots of different ways.
Yeah.
But it's meaningfully connecting with another person in a way that creates safety and trust. And it's my favorite way to connect with people.
Yes. So we're going to pull from Elizabeth Earnshaw, who's a licensed family therapist, these 5 types of intimacy outside of sex. And then we're going to break them down with our own insights and experiences.
Yeah, and this type of intimacy isn't just with a romantic partner.
No.
This is with friends and family. It just creates strong bonds of connection. And it's what we need as humans to feel like we belong.
Number 1 is emotional intimacy. This is developed by sharing feelings and having a sense of trust. It can be built by rituals, weekly check-ins, building an emotional vocabulary, and being curious with each other.
So I think emotional safety is one of the most important forms of safety, and it's not talked about often enough.
Yeah.
And when you have emotional intimacy, that creates emotional safety.
Yeah.
So what this could look like in a family setting is dinners together in the evenings, a family game night, certain types of conversations we have. Like we have a weekly check-in with our kids where we ask them, what's working for you? What's not working for you?
How can we be better parents for you?
Yeah, how can I be a better parent for you? And that is a weekly check-in. That's building vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's a ritual. And it's also creating curiosity of what's going on in their world and not just assuming we know. And hopefully we're doing it in a way that builds trust.
Yeah. Well, and certain people have their own language. Our daughter has a friend where they don't speak actual English. They speak their own adapted form.
Tomato la pita de la poca. Mopa la triba. Findore boss.
Like they don't say cheese, they say ches. Right? And they don't say dog, they say dobe. Look, it's a dobe, right? It's this whole thing that they've created together, but it's a signifier of the emotional bond that they share. There's also things that people say if they don't know how to say the vulnerable words, so they have code, right? Things like that. But the key to emotional intimacy, as you were saying earlier, is safety. The fact is emotions aren't shameful and there's nothing wrong with them, but they do need to be worked through. They need to be understood and processed. And the people that we are able to do that with are the people that we can trust. Not to use our vulnerability against us, not to make the situation about them. Or, because we all have human moments, when they do, to own it and to make it right, and to mend fences.
Yeah.
The next type of intimacy is experiential intimacy, which is created through novel experiences, creating memories, and participating in shared activities. I have a clip from a Goofy movie. Goofy and his son Max have not been getting along, and now their car's been attacked by Bigfoot and they can't go anywhere for a while. We can all relate.
What's so funny?
Hi Dad soup.
Huh?
Oh, don't tell me you don't remember Hi Dad soup. Oh, come on. Sure you do. You used to spell things out using the letters like Hi Dad or Maxie or...
Ambidextrous?
Yeah, that's... Huh? No. Little words like...
Hasta la vista?
Like bye-bye.
Or I pledge allegiance.
Or I love you.
Is it soup yet?
Oh, almost forgot.
Whoa, where'd you learn to do that?
Your granddad taught me that when we went to Yosemite.
You two did a lot together, huh?
Yup. Max,
Dad,
you
listen,
and I
I'm
have
sorry.
How's the soup?
Not bad. I'm not... What?
Nothing.
And there's that darn Bigfoot.
Well, might as well get some shut-eye. I don't think we're going anywhere tonight. Why, Maxie?
The thing about experiential intimacy is sometimes it happens organically, but a lot of times it takes effort and deliberate choice, right? So one thing that I like to do, we're in Utah right now to film, and every time we're here, there is a buffet that I take our kids to.
And boy, do they love that buffet.
And it's the same buffet every time we're here. And it's just a little small thing, but it's something that is, now it's part of our ritual. It's part of our dynamic, and we make memories there, and we share laughter there. And, you know, I tell them you have to have a cup of water and a salad, and then after that, I don't care much what you do. Or if we're doing breakfast, you have to have water and a plate of fruit, and then I don't care what you do. And they just love the free reign. Something you have been excellent at is making family trips happen, and making memories, exploring the world together. And these are things that have bonded us and bonded our family.
Yeah, and we don't do a lot of gifts. So for birthdays or holidays, we might get a membership to a museum or an annual theme park or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting because you don't, even when we have at times bought gifts, we don't ever remember the gifts, but we do remember the year we went to Disney World, or we do remember the year when they were littler. We did things like children's museums. They're kind of bigger, and they're not so into children's museums, like an annual pass to the children's museum. But we always remember those things and the fun memories. And that clip was so interesting to watch because obviously Max is a teenager, right? And he's having that disconnect with his goofy father. And I've gone through that with one of my teenagers. I haven't gone through it with the rest of them yet.
It's coming.
Yeah. But I'll send screenshots of a picture, you know, even a picture that's not very old. It might even be 2 to 4 years old. And I'll be like, hey, do you remember this? And sometimes I don't get a response. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I remember that. That was a good memory. But that experiential stuff, depending on the person, closer personalities really love experiences because they're doers.
Yeah.
And so they'll hold those memories close.
Rituals, routines, traditions, and specific things that you do together can create a type of bond and a type of trust. Next is intellectual intimacy, which is developed through sharing thoughts and ideas, stimulating conversations, and learning together. And this is one of your favorites. This is to connect with your friends, your family, meaningful conversations.
Yeah, well, and all of these can create meaningful conversations, but intellectual intimacy could often look like reading a book or having a book discussion or taking a class together or learning something together or teaching someone something. Very often, thinkers love intellectual intimacy because they're intellectually stimulated, right?
Yeah.
While your dreamer or healer might find it more dry depending on the topic.
That's interesting. So if we bring up the personality types, thinkers will often love intellectual intimacy.
Right.
Experiential, probably more dreamer.
Or closer.
Dreamer and closer.
Yeah, closers are doers.
Yeah. Emotional intimacy, you're healers a lot, right? And I know some of our best bonding moments have been doing the content that we do for this. You know, when we'll read a book together and then we create this our podcast for our membership site, that's very bonding for us because we're having intellectual conversations.
So if you have someone in your life that loves to connect intellectually, even just asking them about something they learned that day, right? And letting them teach you something they learned can be powerful.
Yeah. Next is spiritual intimacy, which is developed by connecting on beliefs, values, or feelings of awe regarding something bigger than yourselves. And so for some people, this is religious. For some people, this is being out in nature. For others, it's serving in the community or self-development, self-improvement, right? These all fall under the umbrella of spirituality.
And really, it's that connecting with something outside yourself, something you see as bigger than yourself.
Yeah. And in my family growing up, that often did take the form of religion and religious ritual and religious traditions. The way we celebrate Christmas, the way we celebrate Easter, what we do on Sundays, these types of things are bonding for us. And to this day, they still are. One of the reasons why it's important to develop more than one type of intimacy with the people you care about, though, is what happens when things shift, right? What happens, for example, if you have spiritual intimacy based on religion and a family member leaves that religion? In that case, do you lose that relationship? Maybe if that's the only type of intimacy that's really bonding you together. And so it's important to weave a tapestry of love and closeness and trust.
But you build it by talking about what's important to you,
Yeah.
what really matters. And depending on the person, that can look drastically different. And I think you bring up an interesting point because there is times where a family member or a partner will leave maybe the religious culture that they grew up with, and then someone doesn't know how to connect with that person because they've so overly identified with that aspect of their relationship.
Yeah.
So much so that they're like, well, take that out, and I don't know how to connect with that person.
Yeah.
And while I understand the challenge, I can comprehend the challenge. I guess I've never experienced it. I mean, I have experienced close friends and loved ones leaving a religion, but I didn't over-identify with that part of our relationship.
Right.
There was other parts of our relationship that I connected with, but also it gave me an opportunity to say, okay, tell me about what you believe now. Like, tell me about what you're discovering now. And so I think it's important to recognize if there's been a shift in that type of intimacy specifically, is to not over-identify with that aspect of your relationship and get curious and learn about who they are and where they're at now.
And a big part of spiritual intimacy in that case is if you have a shared value of I want to learn what matters to you and what helps give your life meaning, if that's part of your shared spiritual value system, then the specifics can differ.
Right.
Can vary widely.
And I think the only point where that becomes unhealthy is when someone is projecting onto someone else, well, you need to believe what I believe.
Yeah.
Right? And that it's not just in spirituality that can become unhealthy, but in any area when we're projecting our values or worldview onto another person and saying, well, it needs to be the same.
Right. And then finally is physical intimacy. And this very specifically, as we said at the top, these are all types of intimacy apart from sex.
Yeah.
So when I say physical intimacy in this context, I'm talking about holding hands, hugs, cuddles, high fives, fist bumps, slaps on the butt if you're in athletics.
If you're in athletics.
Or politics.
So non-sexual touch.
Non-sexual, yeah.
And closeness, right?
So my dad and I hug every time we see each other, right? And I kiss him on the cheek, and we're two grown men, and it's beautiful. We have children who love to come in the morning and cuddle.
Yes. They run into the room and yell, "It's cuddle time!"
Oh, give me a cuddle, Grumpy!
Or sometimes, if they're being thoughtful and they know it's early, they'll just kind of slide in.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and there's a child.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love this. The kids and I, we have movie nights on Friday nights. And I always sit in the middle and do this with my arms so they can all get in. And what they like to do is say, like, what's the halfway point of the movie? Pause and rotate. So who can actually be, like, up against, you know? And it's very sweet. And the thing is, if you look at studies of animals and people, you know, if you look at infant animals and they're given like a fabric version of a mother, but they still gain comfort from the closeness. We have a daughter who loves her stuffies.
Yes.
Right? And it's physical intimacy with an inanimate object, which sounds dirty, but it's not. But it's really just about the comfort of closeness, and we need that. We need touch. A lot of us do. A lot of us.
Well, everybody needs touch. Some people need touch to varying levels.
Yeah.
But specifically with that daughter who is well into her teenage years, so she's not a small child anymore. But she is a healer personality, and she needed a level of like holding and closeness that I couldn't give to her.
Yeah.
In those developing ages as a toddler, and I say I couldn't give him to her for multiple reasons. I was still such a busy closer that I was more of a doer than I am now.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not a doer anymore, but I would say I have more maturity around that doing, like that I don't have to be doing things all the time. But also, she was the second of 5 kids. And so I had a newborn, a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And a 9-year-old, right? And a business. And so there was certain things that she just had to grow out of, because I'm like, I'm sorry, there's too many children younger than you.
But you would hug her and you would cuddle with her.
Yeah. So when
she was insatiable.
It was more than I could give, both from my own personal needs and also like logistics.
From a practical standpoint.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint. And so I would stop and I would hold her and I would comfort her for a few minutes. But like about 3 minutes, I'm like tapped out, and she needed 10 or 15 or 20. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And so after I would hold her and comfort her, I would say, do you want your dolly to hold you? Or do you want, your stuffed animal to hold you? And she would say, yes, I do. And so, we'd always go pick out a dolly, a stuffed animal, and a soft blanket. And then I'd wrap her up with her dolly or stuffed animal and her soft blanket on the couch or wherever she wanted to be. And she was happy. And to this day...
She's 14 now, and she still loves stuffies. She just...
That is what she goes to for comfort.
But she's just sized them up. They're just getting bigger and bigger. They're these enormous things.
The Squishmallows are alive and well at our house. Well, and so I want you to think about this, because these different forms of intimacy can be thought of as different types of love languages, right? Like there are certain ways people are going to enjoy connecting more than others.
Yeah.
And whether that's intellectually or physically or emotionally or through experiences. If you're a doer, you're going to be like, let's go do something together.
Yeah.
While the healer's like, let's stay home and not do things. You can be aware of different people's emotional needs and definitely strive to meet those needs, but also do things to support them if it can't always be you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the case of physical intimacy with our daughter and needing more comfort than I felt like I could give. And to this day, if you were to ask her, like, oh, did your mom not comfort you, or was she not there enough for you? She'd be like, no, she was always there for me, right?
Yeah, that wasn't the issue.
Yeah.
I just needed more. So she would absolutely say you were there for her.
Yeah.
It worked, because you were, and so were her stuffies.
They helped.
Yeah. So what we want to know from you in the comments below is, which of these forms of intimacy do you connect with the most? And which do you feel represents a growth opportunity in your relationships?
Yeah.
My top 2, I think, would be emotional connection, which to me is like words of affirmation, and physical intimacy, which is like physical touch. And then you have experiential intimacy, which is like quality time. Like there's a lot of overlap with the 5 love languages here. What about you? Which one do you really connect with, or ones?
Yeah, for sure experiential, because I'm such a doer and I like to go, I have so many things that I want to do and try and see. So experiential, and then I would say physical. I mean, it's hard to say, because I really love intellectual conversations too. So
Emotional is a little bit lower on the list.
it's true.
Yeah.
But I think doing those other things for me leads to the emotional connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Well, Alicia, we've discussed personality types in this video. If that leaves you all scratching your heads, or if you'd like more information on that and how it can help you in your life and relationships, we've got a course on our membership site on personalities, and you can try it for free right now using the link in the description. Check that out. So until next time, folks, keep shining. We need your light.